So good morning and welcome to a new webinar of the EU DataViz series. I'm Beatriz Fernandez Nebreda from the Publications Office of the European Union, and I have the pleasure to welcome today Tuny Fujs, a data scientist from the World Bank. Today, Tuny will present Open Data, Open Code, Open Knowledge, the example of how to visualize development data at the World Bank, and how to put together a visual report with open source tools. Before we start, we would like to remind you that this session is being recorded and it will be published on YouTube along with the other webinars on DataViz. We will have a 15-minute question and answer session at the end of the talk, so please feel free to use the chat box. We have muted you, and please also turn off the video for a smooth connection. And with that, I would like to give the floor to Tuny. Tuny, the mic is yours. Welcome.
Okay, thank you for the introduction, Beatrice, and thanks everyone for having me today. So, as Beatrice mentioned, my name is Tuny Fujs, and I work for the World Bank Development Data Group at the World Bank. So, what is the World Bank Development Data Group? We like to say that we do data from farm to table. And when I say that, I mean it quite literally. So we do everything from collecting data on the field in various countries, all the way to disseminating data through open data APIs and visualizations and analytics and everything, pretty much everything in between. So I would say that we have mainly three areas of focus. One is services that is directed to country clients. We'll provide direct support to the countries, mostly in collecting, helping them collect data, or maybe providing technical support in developing their open data program. Our second pillar of our work is to provide support to other divisions of the bank. So mostly through the provision of services to develop data visualizations, analytics, but also providing data infrastructure for all the data products that are developed within other divisions of the bank. And finally, and I think this is what I'm going to talk about today, a third pillar of our work is really developing what we call global public goods. So this is all of our open data program and some products such as the SDG Atlas that I'm going to talk about today. So the World Bank has developed various products such as atlases in the past, visual products. So this is one from 1966 that you can see here. And as you can imagine, this was a fairly manual process with a lot of crafts in it, right? Pretty different to the product that we can put together today. This is another example from 1983 here. A few years back, within the broader reflection around the Sustainable Development Goals, we realized that given the scope of the World Bank missions, we had basically in-house expertise across pretty much all the dimensions of the Sustainable Development Goals. And we also had a lot of open data that was in-house also outside the bank that could be leveraged to produce an interesting product to highlight the progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals. So that's when it was decided to put together such a product and to develop the first Atlas of Sustainable Development Goals. Along with that, we decided to basically break a little bit the mold of the typical report, right? If you go to Google and you do a quick search on example of report, this is what you're going to get, the type of results you're going to get. You're going to get a lot of text, and maybe a few charts here and there. And so this is not very exciting, and this is wanted to make a product a little bit different than that. So the typical report is basically based on this idea of having a lot of text, and the text comes first and the visuals come second. And what we decided with the Atlas of Sustainable Development Goals is basically to turn that idea on its head and really to focus on the visuals first. And so this is what we did with the first Atlas of Sustainable Development Goals in 2017. And since then, we had 3 iterations of the Atlas. We had another one in 2018, and most recently, the 2020 Atlas that was released just recently past November of last year. So what I would like to do today is basically focus a little bit on the evolution of the SDG Atlas from this first edition in 2018 to the subsequent iteration in 2018 and the most recent one. And I'm going to try to focus and highlight how the visualization and storytelling has evolved across those 3 editions, and also try to emphasize the core principles that I think underpins each one of this release. All right, so let me jump right into this idea of visualization and storytelling in the Atlas. So one of the core ideas, as I already mentioned, is that we want to have less text and more visuals. How does that look like in practice? This is the 2017 Atlas, and you can see an overview of the different pages of the report. So you see already that there is quite a lot of charts, right? There is mostly a balance of 50-50% between the visuals that are presented and the text. So this is not only text. The text is here in support of the visuals, and the visuals are fairly front and center here in the report. Now, if you go to the next iteration, the 2018 Atlas, you can see that there are even more visuals in this report, right? Here the visuals occupy pretty much all the space in the report. And this is even more obvious if you put those 2 slides side by side. You can see the 2018 version on the left-hand side of the screen and the 2018 one on the right-hand side. And you can see that even though the visual look and feel of both reports are mostly the same, all those blocks of prose that were there in the 2017 versions pretty much disappear from the 2018 version. And we're able to do that through a heavy use of annotations, which I will come back to talk about further in the presentation. And finally, in the 2020 edition, you see that we still have a heavy focus on visualizations, but some of the prose came back into the report. And I will talk more about that as well. I cannot do really a side-by-side comparison with the previous report, because one of the big change between the 2020 edition and the previous editions is that for the 2020 editions, we don't have any print version of the report. This is an online publication only. So those are the screenshots that I took from a view on a mobile device. So the sizing is slightly different. So it's not as easy to compare the ratio of text to visuals as it is for the 2017 versus 2018 reports. But basically, the main point here is that the blocks of prose came back into the report, and the report is now online first. So I will come back to that, but I think the 2020 version is basically the child of the base feature of the 2017 report and the 2018, to which were added some interactive superpower, because now this is an online version. We're able to integrate some of the newest interactive visualization techniques into that report. And I'm going to expand on that later as well. All right, so that was the first idea, right? Less text, more visuals. So now how do we do that in practice? That in order to do that, you need to have very strong, very robust visuals. And a few key ideas behind those individual charts are that they should be self-contained. What I mean by that is you look at one chart and you should have all the information right there in front of you to understand this chart. Right? You should not need to go back up the report or look into an annex or some footnotes to understand what's going on the page. Everything should be self-contained on this chart. In order to do that, we do a heavy use of targeted annotations in order to highlight specific aspects of the charts to make it more easy to understand. And finally, I put it in parentheses because it's only available in the 2020 edition of the report, but the interactivity allows us to make a very efficient use of those annotations. Okay, so that's really conceptual ideas. So let me show you some practical examples of those principles and how they were implemented into the 2017, 2018, and 2020 version. So here you have an example of a chart from the 2017 version. And as you can see, you have all information to make sense of the chart, right? You have a title that showcases the main message of the chart. In many countries, the poorest get a smaller share of social assistance. Sorry, I cannot read the title because of the Webex windows. Social assistance benefits than the richest. So that's quite a powerful story. So you get all that information here in the title. Then you get additional information through a subtitle, the legends, all the labels in the chart. So you can easily make sense of that chart without going anywhere else. However, there is no way to highlight any particular aspects of the chart or any main story that the author would like to highlight. In the 2017 format, this happens in those blocks of prose that I mentioned before. Now, fast forward to 2018, and you have this chart that is about climate change and the amount of CO2 emission. So same idea, same underlying aesthetics of the chart. You have a title that explains what the chart is about. Climate change is caused by atmospheric CO2 and other greenhouse gases. Emissions per capita vary across and within income group. And then you can see that those income groups are defined through the legend at the bottom of the chart. Dark red represent high-income countries. The pink one represents upper middle income countries, the gray lower middle income, etc. And then through the use of targeted annotation, we provide additional information to the reader. So the width of a block represents a country's population, while the height represents emission per capita. So area represents a country's total emissions. So right here with that little targeted annotation, it's the reader can see immediately how to read that chart. And then more targeted annotations to highlight a specific story on that visual. So the United States has nearly double the emissions per capita of China, which is the largest aggregate emitter, while India, whose population is similar to that of China, has much lower emissions per capita. So you can see here that just with a few annotations, you can not only make the chart easier to digest and understand to the reader, but also highlight the main storyline, or one of the main storylines, the storyline that the author wants to highlight, just in a few targeted annotations. So no need to go back and forth or to spend time looking at the main story, it's already there with just a few annotations. And this is a technique that is heavily employed in the data journalism world. And this is something that all the team has been very inspired by the amazing work of the Financial Times. This type of annotation. Now, in the 2020 version, since this is an interactive version, an online first, we're able to use a technique called Scrollytelling, which is also very prominent in the data journalism. So the idea of Scrollytelling is that as you scroll on your web page, right? So you move down, and then when you arrive on the chart, the chart stops moving, but as you keep scrolling down, additional information is being displayed. So here, this is a chart about extreme poverty. Even as the world's population has grown, many fewer people are living in extreme poverty. And as you scroll down, here I have a static version because I didn't want to have internet connection issues. But I will show you the live version later. As you scroll down, then targeted information is being displayed on the screen. So here you have information about the global population grew from 5.3 to 7.5 billion from 1993 to 2017. And then as you keep scrolling down, you have that information about living poverty that is being displayed, and that is tied as well to specific targeted comments. So yet over the same period, the number of people living in extreme poverty fell from 1.9 billion to 689 million. Okay, so it works really well because as you scroll down, you're able to really tie together specific visual display to the specific comment that you want to the reader to focus on. And this is how it looks in real time. This is a GIF of the animation. So and you have some nice transition as well. As you will see, the area that showcases that people are living in poverty appears with a nice transition on the actual website. Okay, so I think this was an illustration of how this idea of self-contained charts and targeted annotation was included in different ways and different fashions into the different 3 iterations of the report. Now let me go to the storytelling part of the SDG Atlas. So we talk about how we want more visuals and less text, right? Then we saw how in order to do that, to accomplish that, we had to focus heavily on making the charts self-contained and easy to understand. Now I'm going to showcase the storytelling aspect that is across all those reports. And I think there's all those annotations and the techniques that are employed in making the chart self-contained are a very powerful tool to allowing the storytelling to take place. They are not the only one that we're leveraging. So in the storytelling, we're trying to combine different charts with not mostly, but often an idea of going from the global picture to the more disaggregated, either regional or local picture. And there, the idea of annotating and disaggregating and transition and chart combination is very powerful to make that storytelling happen. So in the 2017 version of the Atlas, this is how storytelling happened. Right, this was mostly to those blocks of prose that I mentioned earlier, and the reason for that is because we had not included any targeted annotations yet in the charts. So the charts were self-contained, and you were able to interpret them without any problem. But in order to go beyond that step, to create really a specific storyline, that couldn't be done easily within the chart. So the story happened outside of the chart through those blocks of prose. In the 2018 version, thanks to those targeted annotations, we can make that storytelling happen directly through a sequence of charts. And I will showcase now an illustration of that I think works pretty well. So this chart is about particulate matter pollution, PM 2.5. So you see most countries exceed safe levels of fine particulate matter pollution. We have that title, subtitle. You have a world map with a different average level at the country level of particulate matter pollution. And then we have targeted annotations that provide some context about this. So here at the bottom left, you can see that the mean exposure is based on population-weighted satellite measurements calibrated to ground stations. So that gives you some background about how that information was collected. Then here you have information that PM 2.5 also comes from natural sources. So it's not only human-generated pollution. And then you have additional information here about the minimum safe level of particulate matter contamination that can be supported. So you already have a big global picture here with some contextual information about the issues related to particulate matter pollution. Now the next chart in the sequence zoom in onto a particular region. So we're going from the global level to a particular regional level. And here, again, the use of annotation is critical because it makes the link between the different charts. So here you see, whereas the map above shows a national average, this map shows local conditions, right? So it makes the link between this global picture and the regional one. In the regional one, you can see that you have much more variation at the regional level once you zoom in at the regional level that you would expect from the global picture. So, and I think this is something that is repeated over and over across many dimensions that you're looking at, right? Whether it's pollution, whether it's inequality, whether it's in any other topic you can think of. Those local variations versus global variations is a recurring topic. And so it's very interesting to be able to look at this and dive in onto a particular sub-region. So here you can see that spatial variations of particulate matter contamination. And you see that Delhi, the city of Delhi, is highlighted on the chart. And there is a reason for that. That's because the next iteration of the chart will showcase not the spatial variation this time, but the temporal variation in particulate matter in that particular city of Delhi. And again, to make that link between the different charts, there is again a heavy use of targeted annotation. And so you go from that global picture of particulate matter to regional picture, spatial variations, to really a particular location with a focus on temporal variation. So you can see that with 3 simple charts and the adequate use of targeted annotations, you can build a pretty powerful storyline that goes from a global level picture to a very detailed picture of what happened locally. I think this is a technique that is pretty nice and that works pretty well. It's not always easy to put in place, to implement in practice. For different reasons, you have to find the right combinations. You also have to have the data for it, right? It's sometimes hard to have the level of disaggregation that we would like to display for some indicators. So that was the 2018 version of this. Now let me show you how we implemented a similar idea, but with the 2020 version of the report. So this chart is about learning poverty in low and middle income countries, and how this learning poverty varies, again, across regions. So this chart is the first one that you will see when you scroll down the page, and the message is very simple here. In brown you have represent the learning poor share of the population, and in blue you have the not learning poor share of the population. You can see that globally, 52.7% of children are learning poor, and 47.3 are not learning poor. Okay, that's a very broad global number. And then as you scroll down, you get targeted information about what learning poor children are. So half the children in low and middle income countries are unable to read and understand a simple text by age 10. These children are considered learning poor. So this is the definition of learning poor. And then you disaggregate a little bit more. So we define learning poor at a very high level. Now we get additional information about how learning poor are being defined for in school population of students and out of school. So if children are in school, they're considered to be learning poor if they cannot read proficiently by age 10. And then all children that are out of schools are assumed to not read proficiently. And so this is that difference that you can see between the yellow section of the chart and the red section of the chart. And you can see also in the targeted annotation, that's a feature that I really like, the highlighting of the part that, so you see that red below the minimum proficiency level is highlighted in yellow, and this corresponds to the yellow part of the chart. And out of school is highlighted in red, that corresponds to the red section of the chart. So again, that idea to bring closer the annotations to the actual visual components of the chart. And now this is a really cool part. As you scroll down, then that global picture will start to move and break down by region. Okay, so now from a horizontal line, you can see that each section of the bar has moved according to the level of learning poverty in each subregion. Again, the use of targeted annotation to help interpret the chart. So here, the width of the bar represents the population of children in each region. And here, it's maybe a bit hard to see on this picture, but it comes out pretty well when you actually scroll down the side. You can see that the sub-Saharan Africa region, there is a bold dark border around this box, and this is to bring focus, the reader's focus, to this particular part of the chart, right? And so here we have targeted annotation that says the challenge faced by sub-Saharan Africa is particularly acute. And effectively, you can see that the amount of learning poor in sub-Saharan Africa is much higher than in other regions. And as you continue, the focus brings to this particular section of learning poor in sub-Saharan Africa. 9 of 10 children in sub-Saharan Africa, more than 100 million, are learning poor. And of those, sub-Saharan Africa had the highest rate of out-of-school children in 2018, 24%, of 30 million children not enrolled in school. So you can see that how the same technique that I showcased earlier in the 2018 report, where we linked different types of charts to annotation. Here it happens basically on the same charts, but we're basically combining multiple charts in one, right? It happens so that those interactive features that we're able to implement transitions and just switch the focus to particular areas of the charts as you scroll down. But this is really the same technique that we discussed earlier. but that happens using a different different technical tools, right? Instead of having that combination of static charts that we combine with specific sequence, linking them with targeted annotation. Here it happens much more fluidly through that use of transitions and interactive visualization. So let me show you how it happens in real time here. Yeah, and you will see that the transition is also really nice to help focus this. You scroll down, you get that additional information. And here you see how the chart moves smoothly to break down into the different region. And now I think you also as well by that dark border, you will see that darker border move and basically indicates to the reader, okay, this is the part of the chart you should focus on. And this is tied to the actual annotation that is being displayed on the screen. So it's a really nice way to move to help the reader switch its attention to a specific area of the chart and getting the right contextual information in real time. All right, so I hope this gave you a nice picture of how the key principles were implemented and how the implementation slightly changed over time into those different implementation of the SDG Atlas. Now, this was a lot of details and a lot of specific examples. I would like now to take a step back to focus on what has changed and what has stayed the same during those different iterations of the SDG Atlas. So let me talk first about what changed. I think as you've seen, the balance between prose and visuals has moved quite a lot between the different situations. We went to something in 2017 where there was mostly 50-50 between the charts and the prose, to something in 2018 where the prose was virtually absent from the report, to something that is much more balanced in the 2020 report. And I think actually the 2020 report is even heavier on charts than it looks from the screenshot I showed because of this interactivity. As you spend a lot more time on a single chart because as you scroll down, you stay on these charts. That is, in many cases, there are multiple charts that are layered on top of each other and are accessible through nice transitions. But I think one of the reason why adding back the prose was helpful is that it's really tricky and difficult to implement the whole storytelling through only targeted annotation. Right, the example of PM 2.5 I think works pretty well, but in some other examples is not as easy to implement. And more importantly, between different charts in chapter, then the prose not only provide context and sometimes helps with the storytelling, but it also provides glue between the different charts to make the whole sequence of the report flow smoother. So without that prose, you lose a bit of that glue, and then it becomes you have to be very intentional and to choose the right sequence of charts to have that flow going in the report. Otherwise, it can feel like just a list of disconnected charts. I think that prose back helps with that, bringing back some of the glue in the report. It also helps because now we've kept all the targeted annotations, and with the use of the interactivity, it's even easier. It's even more precise how you target one specific area of the chart with a specific annotation. And so it's all the visuals are still self-contained and you get a lot of information, but adding those blocks of prose back gives you the opportunity to provide broader context or go deeper onto a specific point in addition to the chart. So the balance has changed, but I think that the 2020 version reached a nice trade-off between both approaches. The tools now. So that's maybe a bit on the technical side of things, but the toolkit that we've used across these different reports has changed a lot. So in the 2018 version, most of the charts were mostly done through using R and ggplot2, which is a very used charting library in R, and then a layer of Adobe Illustrator to polish the visuals. In the 2018 versions, that was mostly like full R. The whole 2018 report was fully reproducible. And so here everything was produced using R. And now for the 2020 report, we use a different set of tools. So because the report contains interactive visuals, but also static ones. And so the static visuals were produced also using R, using the tooling that what was previously developed during the previous reports. We also use D3, which is a very used JavaScript library. So also really used in data journalism, and a JavaScript framework called React to facilitate the structure of the report. So those are the tools that were used to develop those different reports. As a result of this different tooling, the team's composition has changed quite a bit as well. In the first iteration, most of the charts were produced in-house by the data science and research team. But then we had an external consultant that provided support in all the publication and polishing with Adobe Illustrator and putting everything together. The 2018 version of the report was fully in-house. So because we were leveraging almost exclusively R, and that's a tool that is heavily used in our team, we're able to produce that report fully in-house. And then for the 2020 version, again, there was a mix of producing things in-house with everything that is basically R-based, and hiring external consultants to generate the high-level D3 interactive visuals. And finally, what has changed is the existence of the print version. That was a big change, and I think that's a trend that is probably going to continue, having more and more publications that are online only. But this is the first time that we were doing a fully online version of a publication of the reach of the SDG applet. Now, what stayed the same? I think this one is easy to answer. That's basically our core principles, and I hope those core principles transpired through that presentation. But let me summarize them before I close this presentation. So the first one, and I think this one is fairly obvious, that primary focus on visualization. Right, the SDG class is a visual product at heart, and we kept that focus on visualizations all across the 3 editions. And I think this focus has always been there. Second, the qualities of the individual chart. So here again, I think we stayed true to our core principles of simple is beautiful. I haven't highlighted that as much, but I want to highlight it here. Some of the charts we have are fairly complex, but we also have a lot of simple charts in these reports. right? We strongly believe in the team that charts are medium to deliver a message, to deliver an insight, to deliver information. So if that medium should not be overcomplicated if there is no need for it, right? If the message can be delivered in a very simple fashion, then let's keep it simple. So I think a lot of our charts follow this philosophy that if there is a simple message that can be delivered in a simple way, let's not overcomplicate. Then this idea of all charts being self-contained. I think this one I emphasized a lot during the presentation, so I won't extend here, but I think this is a critical one. Charts, you should be able to understand the chart with everything that you look at. And then annotations. Annotations is something that we've been using more and more in a more and more targeted fashion. And that's a really, really, really powerful tool, both for making your charts easier to understand, to highlight a specific feature of the charts, and also to build your storytelling. So storytelling and nuances, I think that's also something that has been here at the heart of our different SDG Atlas. This idea of always bringing the balance between the global picture and trying to disaggregate and show the nuances when you drill down and go back at the regional and more local. Another idea that I think is key is this idea of transparency. So we try really to base this SDG Atlas report as much as we can on open data, both open data that is produced by the World Bank or by other organizations. We try as much as we can to make the code open source, and we strive to make our results reproducible. Where even though it's not always an easy task, especially for these kinds of reports. But this is something that is at the core of what we do in the world in the development data group, and not only for the SDG Atlas, but for all of our products. We try to really push for as much transparency and as much open data, open code, or open sourcing as possible. And finally, I think that the team's will to innovate and try new approaches is something that is without which we couldn't have produced this report, right? Contrary to other like flagship products, for which is it's more difficult to innovate and try new approaches in an agile fashion. This one, the World Bank Development Data Group has full control on the product, and we're able to really switch focus, try new things, fail quickly, and retry. So that's really something that has been helping us push ourselves internally, but also explore new ways to do things, and also think about the mix of skills that we should have in-house versus hiring externally. So I said that the composition of this team has changed across the different reports. And for example, a discussion that we're having right now is, okay, those new tools, D3 and JavaScript interactive visualization, this is something that we should invest in internally, or do we stick to our usual tools of the trade in statistics, and then outsource everything that is more on the JavaScript visualization side? That's something that we're discussing right now. I don't have an answer, but this project has definitely pushed us to think about these things. So I highly encourage you to check out the latest. I mean, all of them, but especially the latest iteration of the SDG Atlas. You can see here one of those beautiful visualizations in the report. This is a map that focuses on oceans instead of focusing on continent. And this is about coral reefs. So check it out if you can. Thank you very much, and I'm open to any questions if you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony, for this clear and exciting presentation. We do have some questions from Maria. She's asking, which tool do you use for the interactive features of the charts? And do you need an expert in web programming?
Yep. Thanks, Beatrice. So yes, the answer is which tools we use D3 and React.js. And for this, yes, we did hire a few experts, not only in web programming, but in data visualization, right? Because this is even this is a subtopic of web development that is really highly specialized. And so you can have someone that is really at ease with JavaScript and web development that won't be proficient in D3 and data visualization. So yes, we did hire, and this is, as I said, this is a discussion we're having about what is the balance that we should maintain between having externally or developing those skills in-house.
The right mix of skills you were mentioning.
Yes.
Another question from Els. Do you find you now found the right balance between prose, text, visual, and visuals, or are you planning further changes for the next report?
So I think we found a good balance between prose and visuals. That doesn't mean that we won't keep exploring and experimenting in the next report. But I think this 2020 report strikes a right balance between both. Because thanks to the interactive graphics, we can actually include a lot more targeted information in the charts, and we can use the prose to provide broader context and deeper information without affecting the heavy focus on the visuals. So I think this is a good balance. We will see, depending on for the next version, depending on the feedback we're getting, and we'll see how that goes during the next iteration.
Right, thank you. Talking about the feedback, what is the feedback you get from your users, and what are the channels you use to engage and communicate with them? And how do you follow up what they think? Do they like it now better, that is more interactive? What is the feedback you get from your users?
So the first signal we're getting is that we had a lot of visits. So 200,000 views since the release in November, 70,000 plus unique visitors to the site. So that has been quite popular if we compare it to the World Bank flagship products. So that's definitely encouraging. In terms of engagement, we engage mostly through social media. So we try to gather feedback in a systematic way. We also have a help desk, the World Bank Data Group help desk. So every question that gets to us, so it's not specific to the Atlas, but to all of our products. So we use that as a systematic channel to gather information and engage with our users and also learn from them.
Thank you. A question from Els on accessibility. Is there an interactive report readable for people with disabilities, blind, etc.?
So yes, the blind colorless. So if you're colorblind, the set of colors that have been chosen, most of the color palettes are colorblind friendly. So this. Yeah, this has been taken into account. Is it? Yeah, that's mostly I think the color blindness is the one that is most been paid most attention here in that report in terms of visibility.
Okay. A question from Osa. There are so many requirements and demands to take into consideration when producing this kind of report. I agree that it's important to vary the choice of indicators, disaggregations, visualizations to keep the attention of the readers. If the same content is repeated over time, people lose interest. Can you tell us a bit more about this process? Do you always keep the same indicator set? Talking about balance.
So You mean across reports? I guess that's the question.
Across, it's not clearly mentioned, but I suppose it's over time across reports, so from the different annual editions. How do you choose which set of indicators to keep? And you were mentioning the balance between the prose and the text and the visuals to have a flow in the report and not make it completely independent charts one from the other.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, so across report, we can use different set of indicators because it's a relatively short report. Like each chapter focuses on one specific SDG, but then below that SDG, there is a lot of potential indicators that can be used. And so from one report to the next, we may use different indicators. I need to say that all those chapters of the different reports are put together by a team of multiple people at the bank. That involves like data specialists, but also content expert specialists. So you have a poverty specialist or environmental specialist. So there is really a discussion and that is happening at the beginning of the process on okay, what has happened in the past year, what are the developments both at the global level, but maybe also at the local level in a specific country or specific region. And so depending on the discussion, this one indicators of what one feature of the report would be prioritized over the other. So the discussion is always going on. So the choice of indicator will change depending on the data available and also the priorities that the experts on the topic think are important to highlight.
Right. Well, also I was clarifying that she means within the same report. So do you keep the same indicator set within the same report?
Yeah. So
maybe the visuals.
Yeah. So within the same report, each chapter is basically around a specific SDG goal. So in one report on poverty, we will have maybe 2 or 3 key indicators that are being used in that chapter. And then in the chapter on climate change, then you have a few indicators that are key to climate change that will be used in that report. So I don't think there is a risk of repetition here because the scope of the SDGs is so broad that we need to include a breadth of indicators here to cover that.
Right. A question from Oliver on the policy of the World Bank for reusing these visuals.
Good question. I think everything is published as a CC by. Yeah, but I will need to check. I can check before the end of the webinar. It's probably specified directly at the bottom of the Atlas 2020 page.
Okay, and if not, we can always come back and send and reply to all participants. Yep. A question from Glenn. How have you applied accessibility requirements in publications like these, using more DataViz and annotations? I think in a way we already mentioned this before. So all the accessibility requirements. And by the way, I just want to mention very briefly that we have a webinar on accessibility in data visualization on the 23rd of April. But maybe now to Tony.
Yep, thanks. Yes, as I mentioned before, we try to ensure that the color palettes were colorblind friendly. As much as possible in all across the report. And here, this was mostly the work of a joint work between us and the visualization specialists that develop all of the visuals. Right.
Thank you very much. It looks like that was our last question. Maybe if there's nothing else from our participants today, I would just like to thank you very much once again, Tony, for this talk. It will be published on YouTube. We will send you all the link. And we look forward to seeing you in the next webinar on the 23rd of April on accessibility in data visualization. Thank you very much and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.